The hand clamped around Maya's arm like a vice, fingers digging deep enough to bruise bone. She cried out as Rick yanked her from seat 1A, her phone clattering to the floor. "Get this trash off my plane," Catherine Vanderbilt shrieked, actually clapping as Maya stumbled into the aisle. Tiffany Miller's heel came down hard, deliberately kicking the phone under the seat. "We'll mail it to you," she sneered, her smile vicious. Maya's vision blurred with tears as they dragged her toward the door. Every passenger watching, every passenger judging, nobody helping. Her fingers had managed one thing before losing the phone. One call to the only person who could stop this, the man who controlled every drop of fuel flowing into JFK Airport, her father. Before we see what happens when you humiliate a billionaire's daughter, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story of instant karma will leave you speechless. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this incredible story travels around the world. Trust me, you need to stay until the end for this. Now let's jump in. Maya Johnson learned to make herself small. Not physically, she was already petite at 5'4", but in the way she moved through the world. Small voice, small presence, small expectations from the people who looked at her. Being Robert Johnson's only daughter came with scrutiny she'd never asked for. At 19, she'd already mastered the art of disappearing in plain sight. The vintage gray hoodie that hung loose on her frame wasn't a fashion statement. It was camouflage. The worn Converse sneakers on her feet had carried her through 8 months of Oxford cobblestones and late-night study sessions. Her natural curls were pulled into a messy bun because she'd overslept and nearly missed her airport shuttle. To anyone watching her walk through JFK Terminal 4 that sticky July afternoon, Maya was just another broke college student flying standby, probably using miles, probably hoping for an upgrade that wouldn't come. Perfect. That's exactly what she wanted them to see. What they couldn't see was the trust fund, the private security team tracking her every movement through airport cameras. The fact that her father's company, Johnson Energy Solutions, supplied aviation fuel to 70% of East Coast airports. That the boarding pass on her phone represented a $5,000 first-class ticket purchased 3 months ago specifically for safety reasons her father insisted on. Maya preferred it this way. At Oxford, she was just Maya, the American girl who never missed a library session and volunteered at legal aid clinics on weekends. Not Maya Johnson, daughter of the man Forbes called the king of clean energy. Not the girl whose coming out party at 16 made page 6. Just Maya. She clutched her phone tighter, reading her father's last text. "Head down, baby girl. Security meets you at Heathrow. Love you more than my next billion. Dad." She smiled despite herself. Her father's terrible jokes were as reliable as his overprotectiveness. The priority boarding lane stretched before her, separated from the massive economy line by a red velvet rope. Maybe 40 people snaked through the regular line, juggling carry-ons and passports and screaming toddlers. The priority lane sat completely empty. Maya stepped up to the podium. The gate agent glanced up, and Maya watched it happen in real time. The flicker of assessment, eyes traveling from Maya's face to her hoodie to her scuffed sneakers and back up. The almost imperceptible curl of the lip. Patricia Chen, according to the name tag, didn't bother with a smile. "Economy boarding starts in 20 minutes, Patricia said, her tone suggesting Maya was wasting her valuable time. Zone 4 will be called over the PA. You'll need to wait with everyone else in the main line." Maya had been through this exact scenario 11 times in the past year. 11 times she'd been dismissed, redirected, told she was in the wrong place by people who made snap judgments based on her appearance. Usually, she just showed her ticket and moved on, didn't make a fuss, didn't prove a point. But today, something in Patricia's voice, that casual dismissal, that assumption, made Maya's jaw tighten. "I have a first-class ticket," Maya said, her voice quiet but clear. "Seat 1A. She held up her phone, boarding pass displayed clearly. Patricia didn't even look at the screen. She was too busy inventorying Maya's outfit again, as if searching for evidence of fraud. The priority lane is for actual first-class passengers and Diamond Medallion members only, Patricia said, each word clipped. If you upgraded using miles, that's very nice, but you still board with your original ticketing class. Please step aside so you don't block the customers who actually belong here. Actual customers, actual first-class passengers, actually belong. The words hit like small explosions. Maya felt heat creeping up her neck, felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her face neutral. She'd learned long ago that showing anger just confirmed their assumptions. Stay calm, stay dignified, prove them wrong quietly. I didn't upgrade, Maya said, stepping forward. I purchased a first-class ticket. Would you please just scan? Miss, I really don't have time for this debate. If you insist you have priority boarding, you can wait until I finish with actual priority customers, and we'll sort it out then. Now please move. The people in the economy line were starting to notice. Maya could feel their eyes, could hear the whispers starting. Fine. Maya placed her phone directly on the scanner. Beep, beep. Green light flooded the podium. Johnson, Maya, seat 1A, welcome aboard, the automated voice announced cheerfully. Patricia's face went through a fascinating transformation. Surprise flickered first, then embarrassment, then something harder, something that looked almost like resentment. Her cheeks flushed, 2 red spots high on her cheekbones. For 3 full seconds, Patricia just stared at the screen. Maya waited. Surely now Patricia would apologize, would acknowledge the mistake. Patricia snatched Maya's passport without a word, flipped through the pages roughly, as if hoping to find some discrepancy, some reason to be right. She found nothing, of course. The passport was legitimate, the ticket was legitimate, Maya was legitimate. Patricia slammed the passport on the counter. Go ahead, she muttered, refusing eye contact, already turning back to her computer screen, as if Maya had ceased to exist the moment she was proven wrong. No apology, no acknowledgement, just dismissal. Maya picked up her passport with shaking hands and walked down the jet bridge, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was just rudeness, just another microaggression in a lifetime of microaggressions. She'd survived worse. But God, it never stopped hurting. The jet bridge felt endless, her footsteps echoing off the metal walls. She could still hear Patricia's voice in her head. Actual customers, actually belong. Breathe, Maya whispered to herself. Just get to your seat. Headphones on, 8 hours of sleep. Then London, then Oxford, then back to normal. Normal. What a concept. She stepped through the aircraft door and into first class. The temperature dropped immediately, the air conditioning hitting her like stepping into a refrigerator after the humid jet bridge. The cabin smelled expensive, leather and subtle cologne, and that particular scent of newness that came from constant deep cleaning. The seats were massive, cream-colored leather recliners that looked like they belonged in a luxury living room, not an airplane. Soft amber lighting glowed overhead. A flight attendant stood at the galley, her back to the door, arranging champagne flutes on a silver tray with the precision of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. When she turned around, Maya's first thought was that she looked like every flight attendant in every airline commercial. Tall, blonde, early 40s, but well-preserved, with the kind of polished appearance that suggested a full face of makeup was part of the uniform. Her name tag caught the light, Tiffany Miller. Tiffany's face was lit with a brilliant smile, her attention focused on an older white man settling into seat 2A. He was arranging an expensive-looking briefcase and a camel hair coat with the careful attention of someone who knew his possessions cost more than most people made in a month. Mr. Henderson, Tiffany practically sang, let me take that coat for you. And can I start you with champagne, or would you prefer sparkling water? Champagne sounds perfect, Tiffany. Mr. Henderson's voice had that particular accent of old money, boarding schools, and country clubs. You always know exactly what I need. It's absolutely my pleasure, Mr. Henderson. My absolute pleasure. Maya watched the exchange, watched Tiffany's body language, the way she leaned in, just slightly, the way her hands gestured with practiced grace. This was a performance, Maya realized. Tiffany was performing the role of the perfect first-class flight attendant. Maya tried to slip past quietly, murmuring a soft, "Excuse me," as she moved toward her seat. The change happened so fast Maya almost missed it. Tiffany's head turned, her eyes landed on Maya, and the warm smile evaporated like water on hot asphalt. Her face went blank, then cold, then something worse. Disgusted. Tiffany stepped directly into the aisle, physically blocking the path to seat 1A. "Hold on," she said, and her voice had transformed completely. The warmth was gone. This was sharp, cutting, designed to put Maya in her place. "You're lost, sweetie. Economy is straight through that curtain in the back. You'll want to keep walking until you see row numbers in the 30s. The condescension dripped from every word. Sweetie. Lost. Economy. Maya stopped, her messenger bag sliding slightly on her shoulder. She took a breath, steadying herself. "I'm in seat 1A, she said quietly. Tiffany laughed. It was the kind of laugh that wasn't about humor. It was about humiliation. It was loud, performative, designed to draw attention. And it worked. Mr. Henderson glanced up from his champagne. Two other passengers, a middle-aged couple settling into seats across the aisle, turned their heads. 1A? Tiffany repeated, projecting her voice like an actress on stage. "Oh, honey, number 1A is our premium window seat. That's reserved for full-fare first-class passengers. We're talking CEOs, government officials, people who actually paid for the seat. I'm guessing you probably used some miles for an upgrade? That's wonderful. Good for you. But upgraded passengers don't get seat selection. You're probably actually in 4B or 5A, something like that." Each word was a tiny knife. Actually paid. Actually. 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 Tiffany held out her hand, palm up, fingers wiggling impatiently. "Let me see your ticket and we'll get you sorted out." Maya pulled out her phone, unlocking it with fingers that wanted to shake, but she wouldn't let them. Before she could even turn the screen toward Tiffany, the flight attendant snatched the phone right out of her hand. "Hey!" Maya gasped. "Just checking the details," Tiffany said breezily, scrolling through Maya's phone like it was her property. Her eyes scanned the boarding pass, and Maya watched her expression shift. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something that looked almost like anger. Maya Johnson, seat 1A, ticket purchased April 15th, full fare first class, $5,200. The information was right there, impossible to deny. Tiffany's jaw clenched. She thrust the phone back at Maya, practically dropping it into her hands. "Well," Tiffany said, her voice tight, "the system makes mistakes sometimes. Computer glitches happen constantly. There's absolutely no way you actually paid $5,000 for this seat." She looked Maya up and down slowly, deliberately, making sure Maya understood she was being assessed and found wanting. "Look at you. We have standards in first class, a dress code, smart casual at minimum. You're wearing gym clothes. Or are those pajamas? I honestly can't tell." The comment landed with surgical precision. Maya felt it in her chest, felt the familiar burn of humiliation. Several passengers were openly staring now. Maya could feel their eyes crawling over her hoodie, her leggings, her sneakers. "There's no dress code for passengers," Maya said, and she was proud that her voice didn't shake. "I paid for this seat. It's mine. I'm sitting in it." For a long moment, Tiffany just stared at her. Maya could practically see the calculations happening behind those cold blue eyes. Could she really force this girl to move? What were the rules exactly? What could she get away with? Finally, Tiffany took a small step to the side, but not before leaning in close enough that Maya could smell her perfume, something floral and overwhelming. "Fine," Tiffany hissed, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "Sit. But let me be very clear. If the actual owner of that seat shows up, if there was any kind of booking error, you're moving. All the way to the back, row 45, right next to the bathrooms, where you'll probably be more comfortable anyway." She spun away, her movements sharp with suppressed anger, and returned to the galley. Maya slid into seat 1A, her whole body trembling now that the confrontation was over. She fumbled with her seatbelt, her fingers clumsy. She could feel Tiffany's gaze burning into the back of her head, could feel the weight of judgment from the other passengers. She pulled out her headphones with shaking hands and placed them over her ears, desperate to create some barrier between herself and the hostility radiating through the cabin. Just breathe, just survive. 8 hours. You can do 8 hours. But even as she thought it, Maya knew something was wrong. She could feel it in the air, and the way Tiffany kept glancing at her with barely concealed contempt. This wasn't over. 10 minutes crawled by. The cabin filled slowly. Maya kept her eyes closed, her headphones on, music playing loud enough to drown out the world. She noticed a pattern, even with her eyes closed. She could hear Tiffany's voice changing pitch and tone with each new passenger. Warm and welcoming for the older white men in business suits. Deferential and sweet for the elegantly dressed white women with designer handbags. Noticeably cooler when a younger South Asian man in traditional dress passed through. Almost dismissive when an older black woman, beautifully dressed in a purple suit and pearls, asked for help with her overhead luggage. Tiffany pointed her toward a male flight attendant rather than helping herself. Maya saw it all through half-closed eyes, recognized it, had lived it. The seat next to her, 1B, remained empty. Maybe she'd get lucky. Maybe she'd have space to spread out to avoid further interaction. Then the shouting started. "This is completely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable." The voice came from the aircraft door, shrill and demanding, cutting through the quiet murmur of boarding passengers like a siren. Every head in first class turned. The woman who swept into the cabin looked like she'd time-traveled from a 1980s soap opera and brought the costume department with her. She wore a massive faux fur coat despite the July heat, the synthetic fibers catching the cabin lights. Gold dripped from her wrists, her neck, her ears, heavy and ostentatious. She carried a Louis Vuitton bag that probably cost $8,000, and her blonde hair was teased and sprayed into a helmet that defied physics. Her face was red, twisted with fury, and she was pointing a ring-covered finger at Tiffany like a weapon. "I specifically requested the bulkhead window seat. I have sciatica. Do you understand? A medical condition. I need leg room or I'm in agony for 8 hours. Mrs. Vanderbilt." Tiffany's entire being transformed. The cold professionalism melted into pure, obsequious deference. She rushed forward, hands clasped like she was approaching royalty. "Oh my goodness, I'm so terribly sorry. There must have been a terrible mistake at the gate. Please let me see what I can do to fix this immediately." "I don't want apologies, Tiffany. I want solutions." Catherine Vanderbilt's voice could have shattered glass. "I've been flying with Horizon Air for 20 years. 20 years of loyalty. And this is how you treat your most valuable customers? Of course not. Never, Mrs. Vanderbilt. You're absolutely right. Let me just check the seating chart and see what options." "I don't want options. I want that seat." Catherine spun around, her eagle eyes scanning the first-class cabin like a predator searching for prey. Her gaze locked onto seat 1A, onto Maya. More specifically, onto the empty seat beside Maya. "There," Catherine said, her voice sharp with triumph. "That window seat, 1A, I'll take that one." Maya's stomach dropped through the floor. "No. Please, no." She stared out the window, trying to become invisible, trying to will this moment not to be happening. Tiffany's eyes lit up like someone had just solved all her problems at once. Maya could actually see the thought forming on Tiffany's face. Here was the perfect solution. She could make her VIP customer happy and get rid of the girl in the hoodie who'd embarrassed her. 2 problems solved with 1 action. A slow, calculating smile spread across Tiffany's face. "Of course, Mrs. Vanderbilt. Of course. Let me handle this immediately." Tiffany walked down the aisle with purpose, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. When she reached Maya's row, She didn't ask politely. She didn't even fake politeness. She tapped Maya on the shoulder, hard, her fingers digging in with just enough pressure to hurt. Maya pulled off her headphones and looked up, her heart already sinking. "Excuse me," Tiffany said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Professional on the surface, but with an edge of satisfaction underneath. "We have a situation. Mrs. Vanderbilt is one of our most valued customers. She's been flying with us for 2 decades. She's diamond medallion level. She's a personal friend of our CEO, and she has a serious medical condition that requires her to sit in this specific window seat. I'm going to need you to move to another seat right now." Maya's mouth went dry. "I'm very sorry about her medical condition, but I booked this specific seat 3 months in advance. I paid full fare for this exact—" "It doesn't matter when you booked it," Tiffany cut her off, the fake politeness dropping completely. "This is about customer service and compassion. Mrs. Vanderbilt is in pain. She needs this seat. You're young and perfectly healthy. You can sit anywhere on this aircraft. Now I'm asking you politely to gather your things and move." "I paid $5,000 for this seat," Maya said, and she could hear her voice starting to shake. "I specifically chose 1A. I'm not moving." The cabin went absolutely silent. Mr. Henderson lowered his Wall Street Journal slowly, his eyes wide. Catherine Vanderbilt let out a theatrical gasp, her hand flying to her chest. 2 passengers across the aisle stopped mid-conversation, mouths literally hanging open. A businessman in row 3 pulled out his phone. Tiffany's face began to change color, a blotchy red creeping up from her neck. "What did you just say to me?" Tiffany's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I said I'm not moving. This is my assigned seat. I paid for it. It's mine." "Listen to me very carefully." Tiffany leaned down, her face inches from Maya's, close enough that Maya could see the powder caked in the fine lines around her eyes. "I just gave you a polite request. Now I'm giving you a direct order from the lead flight attendant. Grab your bag and move to Mrs. Vanderbilt's assigned seat in 4B. Or, actually, you know what? I can probably find you something in the back of the plane, near the galley, or the bathrooms, somewhere you'll fit in better, somewhere more appropriate for someone like you." Someone like you. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Maya's hands gripped the armrest so hard, her knuckles went white. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to back down, to avoid the scene, to just move and make this all go away. But something deeper, something that had been building through years of these moments, years of being dismissed and diminished and told she didn't belong, rose up in her chest. "No," Maya said. The word echoed through the first-class cabin like a gunshot. Catherine Vanderbilt made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a shriek. Well, I have never in my entire life been treated with such disrespect. Tiffany, are you going to let this child speak to us this way? Are you going to let her steal my seat while I'm standing here in agony?" Tiffany straightened up, crossing her arms over her chest. Her eyes were hard, her jaw set. "You need to understand something," she said, her voice carrying through the cabin. "You are disrupting this flight. You are refusing direct instructions from the flight crew, which is a federal offense under FAA regulations. If you do not move to another seat immediately, I will call security. They will physically remove you from this aircraft. You will be banned from flying with Horizon Air. You will likely be charged with interfering with a flight crew. Do you understand what that means? A criminal record. Your whole future, everything you've worked for, ruined. All because you're too stubborn to show basic human decency to a woman in pain. Is that really what you want?" Maya's vision was starting to tunnel. She could hear blood rushing in her ears, could feel tears building behind her eyes, and absolutely refused to let them fall. "I haven't disrupted anything," she said, and was amazed her voice came out steady. "I boarded my flight. I sat in my assigned seat. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't threatened anyone. All I've done is exist in a seat I paid for. "You're being belligerent and uncooperative," Tiffany snapped. "Exactly," Catherine Vanderbilt jumped in, emboldened. "Look at her. Look at how she's dressed. This is first class, not some homeless shelter. I paid good money for this ticket, and I shouldn't have to look at this the entire flight. Tiffany, call security. Get her out." The businessman in row 3 was definitely filming now. Maya could see the phone pointed in her direction. Whispers rippled through the cabin. "She should just move. It's not that big a deal. Why is she being so difficult? Probably didn't even pay for the ticket. I heard they're gaming the system now, buying tickets just to cause scenes and sue." Each whisper was a knife, but Maya kept her face neutral, kept her breathing steady. Tiffany pulled a phone from her pocket and pressed a button. "This is Flight Attendant Miller on Flight 882. I have an uncooperative passenger refusing crew instructions. I need a supervisor and security at Gate 47 immediately." Maya's pulse was racing now, panic starting to edge through the anger. They were really doing this. They were really going to have her arrested for sitting in the seat she'd paid for. Her hand moved to her hoodie pocket. Her fingers found her phone. She'd sworn she wouldn't do this, sworn she'd never use her father's name, his power, his influence. She'd spent her whole life trying to be just Maya, trying to prove she could make it on her own merit. But as she looked at Tiffany's triumphant face, as she heard Catherine Vanderbilt's cruel laughter, as she felt the weight of every passenger's judgment pressing down on her, Maya made a choice. Today, she wasn't just Maya. Today, she was Maya Johnson, and she was done being small. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a contact. "Dad, emergency only." Her thumb hovered over the call button for just a second. "Don't you dare make a phone call," Tiffany barked, reaching for the phone. "No recording, no calls. That's airline policy." "Touch me again," Maya said, her voice suddenly cold as ice, "and I will sue you personally for assault. That's battery. That's a crime. And I promise you, my lawyers are significantly better than yours." Tiffany froze, her hand suspended in midair. Something in Maya's tone made her hesitate. Maya pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. "Princess?" Her father's voice came through, deep and warm and familiar, and Maya felt something crack in her chest. "Everything okay? You should be wheels up by now." "Dad," her voice caught slightly, "I need you to listen to me very, very carefully." She heard immediate movement on the other end of the line, a chair scraping back, papers rustling. Her father's voice sharpened. All business. "Talk to me. What's happening?" "I'm on Flight 882 to Heathrow. The lead flight attendant, her name is Tiffany Miller, she's trying to force me out of my seat for another passenger. They're threatening to have me arrested. They're calling me disruptive. Who wants your seat?" Her father's voice went very quiet, dangerously quiet. "A woman named Catherine Vanderbilt. Say that name again?" "Catherine Vanderbilt. She says she has sciatica and needs the window seat, and they're trying to make me move to economy. And Dad, they grabbed me. They hurt my arm. They took my phone and put me on speaker, baby girl. Dad, they won't listen. They've already called security. A large man in a Horizon Air uniform was pushing through the boarding passengers, his face grim and determined. This was Rick Santos, a gate agent who'd been told there was an aggressive passenger causing problems. "Ma'am," Rick said, his voice gruff and brooking no argument, "I'm going to need you to gather your belongings and come with me right now." "Don't touch her," Robert Johnson's voice roared from Maya's phone, loud enough that Rick actually stopped moving. Rick frowned down at the phone. "Who the hell is that?" "My father," Maya said, "and if you put your hands on me, you're committing assault and battery on a minor." "You're 19, you're not a minor," Tiffany interjected. "I'm also a paying passenger who has broken no laws, who has complied with every legitimate instruction, who is sitting in my assigned seat that I paid $5,000 for 3 months ago," Maya continued, her voice rising slightly. "If you remove me by force for no legitimate reason, I will press criminal charges and civil charges, and I promise you, you cannot afford my legal team." "Captain's orders," Rick grunted. "You're causing a disturbance. Time to go." And then he made the catastrophic mistake. He grabbed Maya's upper arm, his large hand wrapping completely around her bicep, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. He yanked upward, hauling her out of the seat with enough force that she stumbled. Maya cried out, the sound sharp and pained, and her phone flew from her hand. It hit the floor and skittered under the seat, sliding out of reach. "Finally!" Catherine Vanderbilt actually clapped, bouncing on her heels. "Some proper customer service. Get this trash off my plane." Maya grabbed the armrest to keep from falling completely. Her bag slid off her shoulder and hit the floor. She reached for it, but Rick kicked it aside. "My phone. We'll mail it to your house," Tiffany said, and the smile on her face was vicious, delighted. She actually used her heel to kick Maya's phone further under the seat. "Now get out." "Move," Rick ordered, his hand still gripping her arm tight enough to bruise, pushing her toward the aircraft door. The walk down the aisle felt like walking through a nightmare. Every single face turned toward her, every passenger watching. She could see it all in their eyes. Pity from a few, disgust from others, but mostly indifference. These people didn't care about justice. They just wanted the problem gone so they could get to London on schedule. She heard the whispers following her like ghosts, making such a scene over a seat. Entitled generation, I swear. Probably trying to get a payout. She should have just moved when they asked nicely. Maya felt hot tears sliding down her cheeks and hated herself for it, hated giving them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. As Rick shoved her onto the jet bridge, the humid air hit her face like a slap. Behind her, she heard the aircraft door beginning to swing closed. It was over. She'd lost. She'd been humiliated, assaulted, and thrown off a plane for the crime of existing in a space someone decided she didn't belong in. Rick's grip on her arm loosened slightly as they moved down the jet bridge. He was reaching for his radio, probably to call for additional security to escort her out of the terminal entirely. But then Maya felt something, a vibration. Not from the plane, from the ground itself. Deep and powerful, growing stronger by the second. Outside the terminal windows, blue lights were flashing, and in the sky, cutting through the gray clouds like a black arrow, was a private jet. Sleek and fast and descending at an angle that was definitely not part of normal approach patterns. It had a golden J painted on the tail. Johnson Energy Solutions. Rick stopped walking. He stared out the window, his mouth falling open. Maya wiped her eyes with her free hand and looked at Rick. "I tried to tell you," she said quietly. "That call you interrupted? That was to my father, Robert Johnson, CEO of Johnson Energy Solutions, the company that supplies fuel to 70% of the aircraft at this airport, including this one." Rick's face went white. "And I don't think," Maya continued, her voice getting stronger, "he's very happy with how your airline just treated his daughter." The private jet was getting closer, and now Maya could see vehicles on the tarmac. Black SUVs with flashing lights, moving fast, converging on their gate. Rick's hand dropped from Maya's arm like she'd suddenly burst into flames. "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh my God." Inside the aircraft, in first class, Tiffany Miller was pouring champagne for Catherine Vanderbilt, who'd settled into seat 1A with a satisfied smile. "I don't know what this world is coming to," Catherine was saying, accepting her glass. "These entitled young people think they can just take whatever they want. No respect, no class. Thank goodness you stood firm, Tiffany." "Someone has to maintain standards," Tiffany agreed, feeling rather pleased with herself. Then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, and something in his tone made everyone in the cabin freeze. "Flight attendants, please report to the flight deck immediately. We have a situation." The black Gulfstream G650 didn't land. It descended like a predator diving for prey, cutting through approach patterns, ignoring every protocol, every rule, every standard procedure that governed the carefully choreographed dance of aircraft at JFK. In the control tower, air traffic controller Sarah Chen watched her radar screen with growing horror. "November 73 Juliet Kilo, you are not cleared for that approach. Repeat, you are not cleared. Abort immediately and circle to..." "Tower, this is November 73 Juliet Kilo." The pilot's voice was calm, almost bored. We have emergency authorization from Homeland Security. Check your supervisor's desk. You should have received the documentation approximately 90 seconds ago. Sarah spun to her supervisor, Marcus Webb, who was staring at his computer screen with his mouth hanging open. "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" Marcus looked up, his face pale. "It's legitimate. The authorization came directly from the Deputy Director's office. This aircraft has priority clearance over all commercial traffic. We're ordered to accommodate whatever they request." "That's insane! Who has that kind of pull?" Marcus pointed at his screen. "Robert Johnson, CEO of Johnson Energy Solutions." Sarah's stomach dropped. She knew that name. Everyone in aviation knew that name. "Dear God," she whispered. "What happened?" On the tarmac, the Gulfstream's wheels hit concrete with a screech that echoed across the entire airport. It didn't taxi to a private terminal. It didn't follow ground control directions. It turned sharply, its engine still roaring, and drove straight across the safety zone toward Gate 47, toward Flight 882. Rick Santos stood frozen on the jet bridge, still staring out the window, his hand no longer touching Maya. The color had drained completely from his face. "Miss Johnson," he said, his voice shaking, I didn't know. They told me you were being disruptive. I was just following orders." "You grabbed a teenage girl and dragged her off a plane," Maya said quietly, rubbing her arm where his fingers had dug in. "You didn't ask questions. You didn't check the facts. You just assumed they were telling you the truth and I was lying." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, I have kids. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before you assaulted me." 3 black Cadillac Escalades were racing across the tarmac now, blue lights flashing from their grills. They weren't airport security vehicles. They were private, expensive, and moving with the precision of a military convoy. A Port Authority police cruiser screeched to a halt at the base of the jet bridge stairs, 2 officers jumping out with hands on their holsters. "Everyone freeze!" Officer Martinez shouted, pointing at the Escalades. "This is a restricted area. Stop your vehicles immediately." The Escalades didn't slow down. They formed a perimeter around the Gulfstream as it came to a complete stop, positioned perpendicular to Flight 882's nose gear. If the commercial plane tried to move even 6 feet forward, it would clip the private jet's wing. The Gulfstream's door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Marcus Cole stepped out first. He was 6'4", 250 pounds of solid muscle, with the bearing of someone who'd spent 20 years in Marine Force Recon before transitioning to private security. He wore a dark suit that somehow made him look even more dangerous, and an earpiece that glinted in the afternoon light. He surveyed the scene with the calm assessment of someone who'd been in actual war zones and found airport drama quaint by comparison. "Stand down, officers," Marcus called out, his voice carrying easily across the tarmac. He pulled a leather wallet from his jacket and held up credentials. "Diplomatic Security Service. We have authorization from DHS for emergency extraction of a high-value individual." Officer Martinez climbed 3 steps up the stairs to get a better look at the credentials. His eyes widened. This is real? "Call your supervisor, call the airport director, call the mayor if you want, but while you're making those calls, lower your weapons and step back. We're not here for you. We're here for the girl your airline just assaulted." Officer Martinez looked at his partner, Officer Chen. They both slowly lowered their hands from their holsters. Inside Flight 882's cockpit, Captain David Rogers had been flying commercial aircraft for 23 years. He'd navigated thunderstorms over the Atlantic, landed planes with failed hydraulics, and once talked a passenger through a heart attack until paramedics could meet them at the gate. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. "Tower, this is Flight 882 Heavy," he said into his headset, his voice tight with stress. "We have an aircraft blocking our taxi path, a Gulfstream G650 just parked perpendicular to our nose. If I move forward 6 feet, I'm clipping his wing. What are my instructions?" "Flight 882, stand by." The air traffic controller sounded as lost as he felt. First Officer Jennifer Kim was staring out the windscreen, her hand frozen on the throttle. "Captain, there are armed men on the tarmac, multiple vehicles. This looks like a federal operation." "Or a hijacking," Rogers muttered. He pressed the intercom button. "Flight attendants, report to the cockpit immediately." Tiffany Miller was in the middle of explaining to Catherine Vanderbilt why the champagne selection was superior in first class when the captain's announcement crackled overhead. Something in his tone made her stomach tighten. "Excuse me for just a moment, Mrs. Vanderbilt," she said, forcing a smile. She walked to the cockpit and knocked. When Captain Rogers opened the door, his face was sheet white. "Tiffany, what exactly happened with that passenger you removed?" "The girl in the hoodie? She was being disruptive and refused to follow crew instructions. I had her removed for the safety and comfort of our other passengers, particularly Mrs. Vanderbilt, who has a medical condition." "What's her name?" "Whose name?" "The passenger you removed. What's her name?" Tiffany blinked. I don't know, some teenage girl. Johnson, I think. Why does—" Captain Rogers closed his eyes. "Dear God. Tell me you didn't." "Didn't what?" He pointed out the cockpit window. "Look at that tail number. Look at that aircraft. Do you know who owns a Gulfstream G650 with the registration November 7-3 Juliet Kilo?" Tiffany looked, saw the sleek black jet, saw the golden J painted on the tail. "I don't—" "Johnson Energy Solutions," Captain Rogers said, his voice hollow. "That's Robert Johnson's private jet. And unless I'm very wrong, the girl you just had dragged off this plane is his daughter." All the blood drained from Tiffany's face. "That's impossible. She was dressed like a homeless person. She was wearing a hoodie and sneakers. There's no way." "The man who supplies fuel to 70% of East Coast airports just landed his private jet in the middle of an active taxiway and is currently blocking our aircraft," Rogers said. "So I'm going to ask you one more time. What exactly did you do to his daughter?" Tiffany's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. On the jet bridge, Maya watched as the Gulfstream's door fully extended its stairs. A figure appeared in the doorway, and even from this distance, even through the tears still blurring her vision, she knew him instantly, her father. Robert Johnson stood in the doorway of his jet, surveying the scene with the calm intensity of a man who'd built a multi-billion-dollar empire from nothing and would burn down anyone who threatened his family. He was 52, but looked 40, with the kind of presence that made rooms go quiet when he entered. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's cars, and his dark skin caught the afternoon light as he descended the stairs with measured, deliberate steps. He didn't run. He didn't rush. He walked like a man who owned the ground beneath his feet and the sky above it. Marcus Cole met him at the bottom of the stairs, speaking quietly. Robert nodded once, his jaw tightening, and then he looked up at the jet bridge. His eyes found Maya. For just a second, his face transformed. The CEO mask dropped, and Maya saw raw fury mixed with relief, mixed with fear. Then the mask came back, harder than before. He started walking toward the jet bridge stairs. "Mr. Johnson," station manager Arnold Black came running across the tarmac, his tie flying over his shoulder, sweat pouring down his bald head despite the air conditioning he'd just left. "Mr. Johnson, please, there's been a terrible misunderstanding." Robert didn't stop walking. "Get out of my way, Arnold." "Sir, if we could just discuss this in my office, I'm sure we can resolve." Robert stopped, turned, looked at Arnold with eyes that could freeze helium. "Your employee assaulted my daughter. Your gate agent put his hands on a 19-year-old girl and physically dragged her off an aircraft. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, Arnold? They put their hands on my child. I wasn't informed of the details. I only just heard there was an incident. You have 30 seconds to get on that plane and bring me every single person who touched my daughter. 30 seconds, Arnold. Or I pull every fuel contract with Horizon Air, effective immediately." Arnold's face went from red to white to green. "You can't. We have contracts, legal obligations." "Read the force majeure clause, section 14, paragraph 3. Safety concerns give me unilateral termination rights, and right now, I'm very concerned about the safety of my daughter on your aircraft. 20 seconds, Arnold." Arnold ran for the jet bridge stairs like his life depended on it, because it did. Inside the aircraft, Catherine Vanderbilt was getting impatient. She'd settled into seat 1A, accepted her champagne, and was ready to be pampered for 8 hours. But the plane wasn't moving, and Tiffany had disappeared into the cockpit. "Excuse me," she called to a passing flight attendant, a young man named David who looked terrified. "Why aren't we taking off? I have a connection in London." "There's a situation on the tarmac, ma'am. The captain is handling it." "And what kind of situation?" Before David could answer, Arnold Black burst through the aircraft door like he'd been shot from a cannon. His face was purple, his shirt soaked with sweat, and he was breathing like he'd run a marathon. "Where's Tiffany Miller?" he shouted. The cockpit door opened. Tiffany emerged, her face the color of spoiled milk. "Mr. Black, I can explain." "Shut up! Where's Rick Santos?" "The gate agent? I think he's still on the jet bridge with the passenger." "Get him in here, now. And you, come with me." Arnold grabbed Tiffany's arm and pulled her toward the door. "Mr. Black, what's going on?" Tiffany's voice was rising in pitch, panic creeping in. "What's going on is that you just assaulted Robert Johnson's daughter. What's going on is that there's a Gulf Stream blocking our aircraft and a Homeland Security team on my tarmac. What's going on is that you just cost this airline millions of dollars and me my job. Move." Catherine Vanderbilt sat up straighter. "Robert Johnson? The energy mogul?" "Yes, Mrs. Vanderbilt. The man whose company supplies fuel to half the aircraft in the country. The man whose daughter you just called trash." Catherine's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, spilling across her expensive coat. Arnold dragged Tiffany onto the jet bridge where Rick was still standing, frozen, staring at Maya and the scene unfolding on the tarmac. "Both of you, down those stairs, right now," Arnold ordered. "I'm not going out there," Tiffany said, trying to pull her arm free. "That's insane. I didn't do anything wrong. I was enforcing airline policy." "You enforced nothing. You profiled a paying passenger, you stole her property, and you had her physically removed for no legitimate reason. Move!" Robert Johnson had reached the base of the jet bridge stairs. He stood there, flanked by Marcus and 2 other security personnel, looking up at the open door. "Bring them down," he called up, his voice carrying clearly. "All of them. Anyone who touched my daughter. Anyone who spoke to her. I want them all down here. Now." Arnold pushed Tiffany toward the stairs. She stumbled, catching herself on the railing. "Mr. Johnson," Arnold called out, "I'm bringing them to you now. Please, let's discuss this rationally." "Rationally?" Robert's voice was deadly quiet. "You want to discuss rationality after your employees brutalized my child? After they made her cry? After they put bruises on her arm?" He looked past Arnold, past Tiffany and Rick, and his eyes found Maya standing at the top of the stairs. "Come here, baby girl." Maya moved on shaking legs, walking past Tiffany, past Rick, past Arnold. When she reached her father, he pulled her into his arms, and she finally let herself break. The tears came in great gasping sobs, all the fear and humiliation and rage pouring out. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I'm sorry. I tried not to use your name. I tried to handle it myself." "Shh. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. You understand me?" He pulled back, gently taking her arm and pushing up her hoodie sleeve. The bruises were already forming, 4 dark marks where Rick's fingers had dug in. Robert's jaw muscles flexed. He looked up at Rick, who was halfway down the stairs, and the expression on his face made the gate agent stop moving entirely. "You did this," Robert said. It wasn't a question. Sir, I was told she was being aggressive. I was following protocol for removing an uncooperative passenger." "She's 19 years old and weighs maybe 120 pounds. You're what, 220, 230? And you thought the appropriate response was to grab her hard enough to leave bruises?" "I didn't mean to hurt her. They said she was a security risk." "She was sitting in her seat. The seat she paid for. The seat assigned to her. How exactly was she a security risk?" Rick had no answer. Robert turned to Tiffany, who was gripping the stair railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "And you, You're the one who called her trash, who told her she didn't belong in first class, who stole her phone and kicked it under a seat. I never used that word. Mrs. Vanderbilt used it in front of you. And you smiled and nodded and agreed. I have witnesses. Several passengers have already sent videos to social media. My legal team downloaded them 6 minutes ago. Tiffany's legs nearly gave out. Videos? 11 different passengers recorded at least part of the incident. The one with the best angle shows you kicking my daughter's phone under the seat. Another shows Rick grabbing her arm. Another shows Mrs. Vanderbilt calling her trash. They're all time-stamped. They're all admissible in court. And they're all currently trending on Twitter with the hashtag #BoycottHorizonAir. Arnold Black made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. Robert pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. My head of communications checked 5 minutes ago. The original video already has 6 million views. Horizon Air's stock price has dropped 4% in the last 10 minutes. And it's going to keep dropping until I decide whether or not I'm pulling my fuel contracts. Mr. Johnson, please, Arnold begged. We'll fix this. We'll terminate everyone involved. We'll issue a public apology. That's a start, but it's not enough. Robert looked at Maya, his hand gentle on her shoulder. What do you want, sweetheart? Do you want to continue this flight? Do you want to press charges? What would make this right? Maya looked at Tiffany, who was crying now, mascara running down her face. Looked at Rick, who couldn't meet her eyes. Looked at Arnold, who was calculating the cost of his career. I want them arrested, Maya said, her voice steady despite the tears. I want them charged with assault, both of them. Done, Robert nodded to Marcus, who pulled out his phone. You can't arrest us, Tiffany shrieked. We work for the airline. We have immunity for actions taken in the course of our duties. You have qualified immunity for legitimate safety actions, Robert said. You don't have immunity for assault and battery. You don't have immunity for theft. You don't have immunity for violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination in public accommodations. Would you like me to continue? The Port Authority officers who'd been watching this entire exchange approached carefully. Mr. Johnson, Officer Martinez said, if your daughter wants to press charges, we can take statements and make arrests. But I need to confirm, did these individuals physically assault her? My arm, Maya said quietly, showing him the bruises. Rick did that, and Tiffany took my phone when I tried to call my father. She kicked it under the seat when I asked for it back. Officer Martinez looked at the bruises, looked at Rick, and pulled out his handcuffs. Sir, I'm placing you under arrest for assault and battery. You have the right to remain silent. No, please, Rick's voice cracked. I have 3 kids. I can't go to jail. Please. I was just doing my job. You assaulted a teenager. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. As Rick was being cuffed, Officer Chen approached Tiffany. Ma'am, you're also being placed under arrest for theft and conspiracy to commit assault. Turn around, please. Tiffany's legs buckled. She grabbed the stair railing to keep from falling. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. I'm a flight attendant. I've worked for this airline for 12 years. You can't arrest me for doing my job. You stole a passenger's property and facilitated her assault, Officer Chen said. That's not your job. Turn around. The handcuffs clicked into place and Tiffany's sobs echoed across the tarmac. Robert turned to Arnold. There's one more person who needs to come down those stairs. Arnold's face went white. Who? Catherine Vanderbilt. She's the one who initiated this. She's the one who demanded my daughter's seat. She's the one who called her trash. Bring her down. Mr. Johnson? Mrs. Vanderbilt is a valued customer. She's married to Richard Vance of Vance Construction. I know who she's married to. I had dinner with Richard last month. Nice man. Terrible taste in wives. Bring her down, Arnold, or the fuel embargo starts in 60 seconds. Arnold ran back up the stairs. Inside the aircraft, Catherine Vanderbilt had heard enough of the commotion to understand that something had gone terribly, catastrophically wrong. She'd tried to sink lower in seat 1A, tried to become invisible. It didn't work. Arnold Black appeared in front of her, breathing hard. Mrs. Vanderbilt, I need you to come with me. I'm not going anywhere. I have sciatica. I can't walk stairs. I demand to speak to the airline president. The man on the tarmac supplies fuel to this entire airport. If you don't come down those stairs right now, this airline goes bankrupt. Move." Catherine's mouth opened and closed. But I'm a Diamond member. I'm friends with the CEO. The CEO just sent me a text telling me to give Robert Johnson whatever he wants. Get up now. Catherine stood on shaking legs, grabbing her Louis Vuitton bag. As Arnold led her down the aisle, she could feel every passenger's eyes on her, could hear the whispers. She's the one who started it, calling that poor girl trash. Entitled witch. Mr. Henderson, who'd been watching the whole thing with growing horror, actually took a picture of Catherine as she passed. She heard the camera shutter sound and whirled on him. "How dare you? Delete that immediately." "No, ma'am," Henderson said calmly. "This is going in my trip report to my company. We spend $6 million a year with Horizon Air. After watching this debacle, I'm recommending we switch carriers." Catherine's face turned purple, but Arnold was already pulling her toward the door. When she emerged onto the jet bridge and saw the scene below, the police cars, the armed security, the handcuffed airline employees, her knees nearly gave out. "No," she whispered. "No, this is insane. I didn't do anything. I just wanted a better seat, that's all. Just a better seat." Robert Johnson looked up at her, his eyes cold as winter. "Come down here, Mrs. Vanderbilt. Let's discuss your better seat." Catherine descended the stairs on trembling legs, her expensive heels clicking against the metal. When she reached the bottom, she tried to summon some of her earlier hauteur. "I don't know who you think you are," she started, "but I am a valued customer of this airline and a personal friend." "Of nobody who matters," Robert interrupted. "I know exactly who you are, Catherine. I know you're on your third marriage. I know your husband keeps you on a tight allowance because of your shopping addiction. I know you filed for bankruptcy in 2008. I know all of it." Catherine's face went from red to white. How dare you investigate me?" "I didn't have to investigate. I made 2 phone calls, one to my head of security, who did a background check while I was in the air, one to your husband." "Richard? You called Richard?" "I did, about 8 minutes ago. I told him what you did, what you called my daughter, how you acted." Robert pulled out his phone and played a recording. Richard Vance's voice came through clearly. "Mr. Johnson, I am deeply sorry for my wife's behavior. I assure you she will face consequences, and I'll be calling my attorney in the morning to begin divorce proceedings. I've been looking for a reason. She just gave me the perfect one." Catherine swayed on her heels. "No, he wouldn't. He loves me." "He's embarrassed by you. He's been embarrassed for years. But you, humiliating a teenager on video that's now been seen by 6 million people? That's the last straw. Congratulations, Catherine. You just lost your meal ticket over a seat." Catherine collapsed onto the stairs, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Officer Chen approached. "Mr. Johnson, do you want to press charges against her as well?" Robert looked at Catherine, sobbing on the stairs, her expensive coat sliding off her shoulders, her designer bag spilling its contents across the tarmac. "No," he said quietly. "She's already facing the consequences. Losing her husband, her lifestyle, her reputation. That's enough." He turned back to Maya. "Are you okay, baby girl? Do you need a doctor?" "I'm okay, Dad. Just shaken up." "Do you want to continue to London on this flight?" Maya looked at Flight 882, at the passengers pressed against the windows watching the drama unfold, looked at the first-class cabin where she'd been humiliated. "No, I don't want to be anywhere near these people." "Then we're leaving. The Gulf Stream is fueled and ready. We'll be in London 2 hours before this disaster pushes back from the gate." He turned to Arnold. "You have a choice to make, Arnold. You can demonstrate that this airline takes passenger safety seriously by firing everyone involved and implementing new training. Or, I pull the fuel contracts and you're bankrupt in a week. What's it going to be?" Arnold didn't hesitate. They're all terminated, effective immediately, and I'll personally oversee the new training program. Good. You have 72 hours to send me the implementation plan. If I like what I see, the contracts continue. If I don't, you're done. Robert put his arm around Maya and guided her toward the Gulf Stream. As they walked, Tiffany's voice called out from the police car. "This isn't fair. I was just doing my job. You can't ruin my life over this." Robert stopped, turned, looked at her through the police car window. "You called my daughter trash. You humiliated her in front of 50 people. You stole her property and watched while she was assaulted. You did all of that because you looked at her clothes and decided she didn't belong. And now you're facing consequences." "Yes, Mrs. Miller. Yes, I can." He and Maya climbed the Gulf Stream stairs together. The door closed with a soft hiss, sealing out the chaos, the judgment, the cruelty. Inside, the cabin was quiet, peaceful, everything the commercial flight should have been. Maya sank into a cream leather seat and finally let herself breathe. Her father sat across from her, his hand reaching out to squeeze hers. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "You stood up for yourself. You didn't back down even when they tried to intimidate you." "I used your name," Maya said. "I swore I wouldn't." "Sometimes," Robert said, "standing up for yourself means using every tool you have. There's no shame in that. You tried to handle it yourself. They escalated. You responded appropriately." The Gulf Stream's engines began to power up. Outside the window, Maya could see Flight 882 still sitting there, blocked, grounded, its passengers watching as the private jet began to taxi. "What happens to them now?" Maya asked. "Tiffany and Rick will be charged, probably plead out to misdemeanors, community service, fines. Their careers in aviation are over. Catherine is losing her husband and her lifestyle. Arnold might keep his job if he implements real changes. The airline will hemorrhage money until they prove they've fixed their culture. And the passengers who just watched, who did nothing?" Robert's expression hardened. "They'll live with knowing they witnessed an injustice and chose comfort over courage. That's its own punishment." The Gulf Stream lifted off, climbing fast into the gray sky. Maya watched JFK grow smaller below them, watched the commercial aircraft sitting uselessly at the gate. For the first time in hours, she felt safe. But her father's phone was already ringing. His legal team, his PR team, the board of directors of Horizon Air probably. The consequences were just beginning, and Robert Johnson wasn't done yet. The Gulf Stream leveled off at 42,000 feet, well above commercial traffic, and Maya finally felt her heartbeat slow to something approaching normal. She changed out of her hoodie into a soft cashmere sweater from the jet's wardrobe, and her father's personal physician, Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd been waiting on board, had examined her arm and applied ice packs to the bruising. "You'll want to keep ice on this for the next 24 hours, Dr. Chen said gently, wrapping Maya's bicep with a compression bandage. "The bruising will get worse before it gets better. Deep tissue damage like this, from fingers digging in, it's going to hurt for about a week." Maya nodded, feeling numb. She'd been running on adrenaline for the past hour, and now that the immediate crisis was over, exhaustion was crashing over her in waves. Dr. Chen touched her shoulder. "You did nothing wrong, Maya. Nothing. You understand that, right?" "I know," Maya whispered, but her voice cracked on the words. "Knowing it and believing it are different things. Give yourself time to process. This was traumatic." After Dr. Chen returned to her seat in the back of the cabin, Robert moved to sit beside his daughter. He'd removed his jacket and loosened his tie, and for the first time since boarding, he looked less like a CEO and more like a father. "Talk to me, baby girl," he said quietly. "What are you thinking?" Maya stared out the window at the clouds below. "I'm thinking about all the times this has happened before, all the times I just let it go, all the times I didn't call you because I didn't want to be that girl, the one who runs to daddy every time someone is mean to her. This wasn't someone being mean, this was assault." "I know, but the other times, the times when it was just words, just looks, just people assuming I didn't belong somewhere because of how I looked, those times I just swallowed it, made myself smaller, tried harder to fit in." She turned to face him, tears welling in her eyes. What if I'd just moved to another seat? None of this would have happened. Robert's jaw tightened. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for their actions. I'm not. Maybe if I'd explained better, if I'd been more polite. Maya, her father's voice was firm. You were polite. You showed your ticket. You explained calmly. You did everything right, and they still treated you like a criminal. Do you know why? She shook her head. Because no amount of politeness can fix someone else's prejudice. You could have been wearing a ball gown and speaking the Queen's English, and Tiffany Miller still would have found a reason to believe you didn't belong there. Because in her mind, someone who looks like you doesn't belong in first class. And that's her failure, not yours. Maya's tears spilled over. It's exhausting, Dad. Being constantly questioned, constantly having to prove I have a right to exist in spaces. At Oxford, in airports, in stores. I'm so tired of it. Robert pulled her into his arms and let her cry. When she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, he said, I know it's exhausting. Your mother dealt with the same thing. Every boardroom she walked into, people assumed she was there to take notes, not to run the meeting. Every business dinner, they handed her a coat check ticket instead of a menu. It wore her down. Maya's mother, Dr. Grace Johnson, had been a pioneering cardiac surgeon before her death from cancer 3 years ago. She'd been brilliant, fierce, and had taught Maya to never apologize for taking up space. What would Mom have done? Maya asked. Today, I mean. Would she have called you? Robert smiled sadly. Your mother? She would have called me. Then she would have called the NAACP, the ACLU, CNN, and probably the president. She didn't believe in quiet dignity when facing injustice. She believed in burning the house down and building something better. I miss her. Me too, baby girl. Every single day. Robert's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted. It's Harrison Thorne, my attorney. I need to take this. He put the phone on speaker. Harrison's smooth, calculated voice filled the cabin. Robert, we have developments, multiple developments. Where would you like me to start? Start with the criminal charges. The district attorney's office has accepted the assault and battery charges against Rick Santos. He'll be arraigned tomorrow morning. The theft charges against Tiffany Miller are also moving forward. Both are looking at misdemeanor convictions, probation, fines, community service. Neither will see jail time, but both will have criminal records. Maya felt a small measure of satisfaction at that. What about the civil case? Robert asked. We've drafted a lawsuit against Horizon Air, Tiffany Miller, Rick Santos, and Catherine Vanderbilt. Assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, violation of civil rights, and negligent hiring and supervision. We're asking for $25 million in damages. Maya's eyes widened. $25 million? Dad, that's what your suffering is worth, Robert said firmly. And it's what it costs to make sure they never do this to anyone else. Harrison continued. Horizon Air's legal team has already reached out. They want to settle. They're offering $5 million and a public apology. Rejected, Robert said immediately. We're not settling. This goes to trial. I want discovery. I want to see their training materials, their complaint records, every incident report filed against Tiffany Miller. I want a jury to hear what happened to my daughter. Understood. I'll inform their counsel. Now, the interesting part. We've received calls from 11 other passengers who've experienced similar treatment on Horizon Air flights in the past 18 months. All people of color. All humiliated or removed from first-class seats for questionable reasons. They want to join a class action lawsuit. Robert leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Set it up. Class action, pattern of discrimination. I want Horizon Air's culture exposed. Already on it. We're also fielding media requests. CNN, NBC, ABC, Fox, BBC, Al Jazeera. Everyone wants the story. Do we give them Maya? Absolutely not, Maya said before her father could answer. I don't want to be the face of this. I don't want my picture on the news. Robert looked at her. You sure? This is your story to tell. I'm sure. I just want to go back to Oxford and forget this ever happened. We can issue a statement without using your image, Harrison suggested. Generic enough to protect your privacy, but strong enough to control the narrative. Do it, Robert said. And Harrison, one more thing. I want a full audit of Horizon Air's board of directors. Who sits on it, what their backgrounds are, what their response to this incident tells us about the company culture. I'll have that to you by morning. Anything else? Yes. Find out if Catherine Vanderbilt has filed for any kind of restraining order or countersuit. She struck me as the type who doesn't go down quietly. Harrison laughed, a dry sound. Already done. Her attorney, her soon-to-be ex-husband's attorney, contacted us an hour ago. Richard Vance wants to make very clear that he's divorcing Catherine and does not support her actions. He's offered to testify against her if needed. Smart man, Robert said. He knows his construction company can't afford to be associated with this. Precisely. He's doing damage control. Catherine, on the other hand, has been calling every news outlet claiming she's the victim, that you threatened her, that Maya was actually the aggressor. Maya's stomach turned. She's lying. She knows she's lying. Of course she is, Harrison said. But here's the beautiful part. We have 11 videos from different angles showing exactly what happened. Her lies won't hold up for 10 seconds. In fact, 3 news outlets have already declined to run her story because they've seen the footage. Robert smiled grimly. Good. Let her dig her own grave. After Robert ended the call, he turned to Maya. How are you feeling, honestly? Angry, she admitted, and scared. What if this follows me forever? What if every time someone searches my name, this comes up? It probably will, Robert said, and his honesty surprised her. This is going to be part of your story now. But Maya, you get to decide what that means. Does it mean you're a victim who got humiliated on a plane? Or does it mean you're someone who stood up for yourself and changed an industry? I don't want to change an industry. I just wanted to fly to London. I know, but sometimes we don't get to choose our moments. They choose us. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Mr. Johnson, we've received a priority communication from JFK Airport Authority. They're asking if you'll reconsider the fuel embargo. Robert picked up the phone to the cockpit. Tell them I'll reconsider when I see termination papers for everyone involved and a comprehensive anti-discrimination training program for all Horizon Air employees. Until then, not a drop. He hung up and met Maya's eyes. I meant what I said on the tarmac. This airline will change or it will die. There's no middle ground. 20 minutes later, Robert's phone rang again. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. He answered on speaker. Mr. Johnson, this is James Whitmore. I'm the CEO of Horizon Air. Robert's eyebrows rose. Mr. Whitmore, calling personally. I'm surprised. I'm calling to apologize directly to you and your daughter for the unconscionable treatment she received today. What happened on that aircraft is not representative of our company values, and I want you to know we're taking immediate action. What kind of action? Robert's voice was skeptical. Tiffany Miller, Rick Santos, and Arnold Black have all been terminated. We're implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all employees starting next week. We're also creating an independent oversight committee to review passenger complaints, particularly those involving discrimination. That's a start, Robert said, but it's not enough. There was a pause. What would be enough, Mr. Johnson? I want a seat on that oversight committee. I want quarterly reports on discrimination complaints. I want you to hire a chief diversity officer with real power, not just a token position. And I want a public acknowledgement that your company failed my daughter and failed the other passengers who've been treated this way. Done, Whitmore said without hesitation. All of it. And Mr. Johnson, I'd like to offer Maya a lifetime platinum membership, unlimited first-class travel, and a formal written apology from me personally. Maya shook her head vigorously at her father. My daughter doesn't want your miles or your membership, Robert said coldly. She wants to never think about your airline again. But I'll accept the other terms. You have 72 hours to deliver the written apology and the implementation plan for the changes. If I like what I see, I'll restore fuel services. If I don't, you can start shopping for a new fuel supplier. Understood. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to make this right. After Robert hung up, Maya said, You really think they'll change? Or are they just panicking because you cut their fuel? Both, Robert admitted. They're panicking now. But if we hold their feet to the fire, if we make sure the oversight is real, they might actually change. Not because they want to, but because it's expensive not to. That's cynical. That's business, baby girl. Most companies don't do the right thing because it's right. They do it because it's profitable or because not doing it is too costly. Right now, discrimination just became very, very costly for Horizon Air. Marcus Cole appeared from the back of the cabin. Boss, we've got a situation. Social media is exploding. The hashtag Boycott Horizon Air is trending #1 worldwide. The original video has been viewed 43 million times in the last 2 hours. Maya felt sick. 43 million? People are angry, Marcus said. Really angry. Horizon Air's social media accounts are getting flooded with comments. Their stock price has dropped 18%. And here's the interesting part. Other airlines are publicly distancing themselves from Horizon's actions and promising to review their own policies. Fear works, Robert said quietly. They're all terrified they're next. Maya stood up abruptly and walked to the back of the cabin, needing space. She pulled out her phone, which Dr. Chen had retrieved from under the airplane seat before they left, and opened Twitter. The feed was overwhelming. Her name wasn't attached to the videos, but the footage was everywhere. People dissecting every moment, every word. She saw comments defending her, comments calling Tiffany every name imaginable, comments from other people of color sharing their own stories of being profiled, questioned, removed from spaces they'd paid to be in. But there were other comments, too. Comments saying she was overreacting, that she should have just moved, that rich people problems weren't real problems, that her father's response was excessive and abusive. Those comments hurt almost as much as Tiffany's original words. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate at Oxford, Priya. Just saw the video. Holy shit, Maya. Are you okay? Do you need me to come to London early? Maya typed back, I'm fine, with my dad. See you in a few days. But she wasn't fine. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like millions of strangers were picking apart the worst moment of her life and turning it into entertainment. Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. You entitled brat. You think you're special because your daddy has money? People like you make me sick. Hope you learned your lesson about making scenes. Maya's hands started shaking. She blocked the number, but 2 more texts came through from different numbers, both similar in tone. Robert appeared beside her. What's wrong? She showed him the messages. His face went hard. Give me your phone. Dad, it's just trolls. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Give me your phone. She handed it over. Robert forwarded the messages to Harrison with a simple note. Get restraining orders and press charges for harassment. All of them. Dad, you can't prosecute everyone who sends a mean text. Watch me. These people think they can threaten my daughter from behind anonymous accounts. They're about to learn otherwise. He handed her phone back. I'm having Marcus set up enhanced security for you. New phone number, encrypted messaging, the works. Nobody threatens my family without consequences. Maya wanted to argue that it was overkill, but another part of her, the part that was still shaking from reading those messages, was grateful. What if it never stops, she asked quietly. What if I'm always going to be known as that girl from the airplane video? Then you become someone else too, Robert said. You finish Oxford. You go to law school like you've been planning. You become the attorney who fights for people who can't fight for themselves. You turn this into fuel instead of letting it burn you down. Like Mom would have done. Exactly like Mom would have done. An hour later, the Gulfstream began its descent into London Heathrow. Maya had tried to sleep, but couldn't, her mind racing with everything that had happened, everything that was still happening. Robert's phone had barely stopped ringing, calls from board members of other companies he sat on, all wanting to know his version of events. Calls from friends, from business associates, from people Maya had never heard of, all weighing in. The plane touched down smoothly, and as they taxied to the private terminal, Maya could see news vans waiting near the fence. They found out we were coming, Marcus said grimly. Must have tracked the flight number. Can we avoid them, Maya asked. We have a car waiting at the private terminal. They can't get past security there. But Maya, you should know, this story is international news now. It's not just American outlets. BBC, Sky News, they're all covering it. Maya closed her eyes. Great. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. When they disembarked, there was indeed a black Range Rover waiting on the tarmac, its windows tinted dark. Marcus and 2 other security personnel formed a barrier around Maya and Robert as they walked to the vehicle. A reporter with a telephoto lens was shouting questions from beyond the security fence. Maya Johnson, how do you feel about Horizon Air's apology? Mr. Johnson, are you really going to bankrupt the airline? Maya, do you think Tiffany Miller deserves to go to jail? Marcus opened the car door and Maya slipped inside quickly, her father right behind her. As the Range Rover pulled away from the airport, Maya finally let herself relax slightly. The driver, a stern-faced woman named Patricia, who'd worked for the Johnson family for years, met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Good to see you, Miss Maya. I have your favorite, hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, in the cup holder. Maya felt tears prick her eyes at the small kindness. Thanks, Patricia. The drive to Maya's apartment near Oxford took just over an hour. Robert had offered to get her a hotel for the night, somewhere more secure, but Maya insisted she wanted to be in her own space, with her own things. When they pulled up to her building, a modest converted townhouse split into student apartments, there was a small crowd of reporters on the sidewalk. How did they find my address? Maya's voice rose in panic. Public record, Marcus said grimly. University housing database. It's not hard to find. I can't go in there. They'll swarm me. Robert pulled out his phone. Give me 10 minutes. He made 3 calls. The first to the Oxford police, reporting harassment of a student. The second to the university dean, who apparently owed Robert a favor from a donation made years ago. The third to a private security company. Within 8 minutes, 2 police cars arrived and began dispersing the reporters, citing public disturbance laws. A university security officer appeared to escort Maya to her door, and a private security guard was posted outside her building for what Marcus called the foreseeable future. Maya finally made it inside her apartment, Robert and Marcus sweeping the space to make sure it was secure before letting her settle in. Her roommate Priya burst through the door 10 minutes later, her arms full of grocery bags. I bought every comfort food I could think of, Priya announced, dumping ice cream, chocolate, and chips on the kitchen counter. Ice cream, 3 kinds. Chocolate, 5 kinds. Chips, both American and British. And wine, because we're in England and it's legal. Maya hugged her friend tightly. You didn't have to do all this. Are you kidding? My roommate just broke the internet. Of course I did all this. Priya pulled back, her face serious. But really, Maya, are you okay? I don't know, Maya admitted. Ask me in a week. Robert pulled Maya aside. I need to fly back to New York tonight. Crisis management, board meetings, the whole thing. But Marcus is staying here with you. So is Patricia. And I'm a phone call away, anytime. Understand? I know, Dad. Thank you for everything. You don't thank me for protecting you. That's my job. That's my privilege. He kissed her forehead. I love you, baby girl, and I'm proud of you. After her father left, Maya and Priya settled on the couch with ice cream and turned on the TV. The BBC was running the story as their lead. An American teenager was forcibly removed from a first-class airplane seat yesterday in what witnesses are calling a clear case of racial profiling. The incident, which was captured on video by multiple passengers, has sparked international outrage and calls for airline industry reform. The footage played. Maya watched herself, small and scared in her hoodie, trying to explain to Tiffany that she'd paid for the seat. Watched Rick grab her arm. Watched herself cry. It was surreal, seeing her worst moment played back like this, analyzed by strangers who knew nothing about her. The passenger has been identified as the daughter of billionaire Robert Johnson, the reporter continued. Mr. Johnson responded by landing his private jet on the tarmac and blocking the commercial aircraft from departing. He has since cut fuel supplies to the airline, threatening its financial viability. The story cut to an interview with James Whitmore, the Horizon Air CEO, looking pale and shaken. We deeply regret this incident and have taken immediate action to terminate the employees involved. We are committed to ensuring this never happens again." Then the story showed clips from social media, people sharing their own experiences of discrimination in airports, on planes, in first-class cabins. "I was told I needed to show 3 forms of ID to prove I could afford my ticket," one woman said. "Security pulled me aside and searched my bags, while white passengers walked right through," a black man shared. "They asked if I was the nanny for my own children," an Asian woman said, tears in her eyes. Maya felt her chest tighten. This wasn't just about her anymore. This had become something bigger, something she never intended. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but this one was different. "Thank you for not backing down. My daughter is 10. I want her to grow up in a world where she doesn't have to prove she belongs everywhere she goes. You're helping create that world. Thank you." Maya showed the text to Priya, who squeezed her hand. "See? You did something good today, even if it doesn't feel like it." But Maya wasn't sure. She felt tired, scared, and exposed. She felt like her privacy had been ripped away, like she'd lost control of her own story. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Harrison Thorne. "Maya, I need to inform you of something. Catherine Vanderbilt has filed a defamation lawsuit against you and your father, claiming you ruined her reputation and destroyed her marriage. She's asking for $50 million in damages." Maya's ice cream slipped from her hand, splattering across the floor. "She's suing me?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "After everything she did, she's suing me?" "It's a nuisance suit," Harrison said calmly. "It'll get thrown out in the first hearing, but I wanted you to know before you saw it on the news." "This is never going to end, is it?" Maya asked. "This is going to follow me forever." "For a while, yes," Harrison said honestly. "But Maya, you're on the right side of this. Truth is on your side. Justice is on your side. That matters." After she hung up, Maya sat on her couch, surrounded by melting ice cream and concerned friends, and wondered if standing up for herself had been worth it. Her phone buzzed one more time. Her father. "Just heard about Catherine's lawsuit. Don't worry about it. I'm going to destroy her in court and enjoy every second of it. Love you. Get some sleep." Despite everything, Maya smiled. Maybe, just maybe, this would be worth it after all. Maya didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Tiffany's sneer, felt Rick's fingers digging into her arm, heard Catherine's voice calling her trash. By 3 a.m, she gave up and sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen. The emails had started arriving around midnight, hundreds of them. Her Oxford email account, which she'd foolishly thought was private, had somehow been discovered and shared across social media. Most of the emails were supportive, people sharing their own stories, thanking her for speaking up, calling her brave. But scattered among them were the other kind, the threats, the slurs, the detailed descriptions of violence people wanted to inflict on her for being entitled, for being privileged, for daring to make a scene over something as trivial as a seat. "You should be grateful they even let you on the plane," one email read. "Your kind used to have to sit in the back of the bus. Now you're crying because you can't have the front row? Pathetic." Maya's hands shook as she read it. She wanted to close the laptop, to pretend she hadn't seen it. But something made her keep reading. She needed to understand the depth of the hatred, needed to know what she was facing. Another email, this one with an attachment. She almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. It was a photoshopped image of her face on a wanted poster, with the caption, "Spoiled brat who ruins lives for attention." She slammed the laptop closed and stood up, pacing her small bedroom. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from her father, sent at 3:15 a.m, New York time. "Can't sleep either. Want to talk?" She called him immediately. "Hey, baby girl." Robert's voice was tired but warm. "How bad is it?" "Pretty bad. Someone found my school email. I've gotten about 300 messages in the last 5 hours. Most are nice, but the ones that aren't are really creative with their hatred. Send them all to Harrison, every single one. We're building a case for ongoing harassment." Dad, you can't sue everyone who sends me a mean email. That's literally impossible. Watch me try. There was steel in his voice. Maya, these people think they can hide behind anonymity and terrorize you. They're about to learn that digital footprints are permanent and lawyers are expensive. Maya sat on her bed, drawing her knees to her chest. Is Mom looking down on this, thinking I'm handling it all wrong? Your mother would be organizing a protest outside Horizon Air headquarters and probably chaining herself to their corporate jet. You're handling this with much more grace than she would have. That made Maya smile, despite everything. Listen, Robert continued, I got a call from Good Morning America. They want you on the show. Live interview, your chance to tell your story in your own words. Absolutely not. Hear me out. Right now, other people are controlling the narrative. Horizon Air is spinning this as an unfortunate misunderstanding. Catherine Vanderbilt is giving interviews claiming she's the victim. Tiffany Miller's lawyer released a statement saying she was just doing her job. You need to take back your voice. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be the face of airline discrimination. I just want to finish my degree and move on with my life. I know, but that's not an option anymore. The story is out there. You can either shape it or let other people shape it for you. Maya pressed her palms against her eyes. I need to think about it. Take your time. But Maya, they're going to keep defining you until you define yourself. After they hung up, Maya opened her laptop again. This time, she went to YouTube, where someone had compiled every video from the incident into one 15-minute timeline. She forced herself to watch. It started with her approaching the gate, Patricia, the gate agent, dismissing her. Then, boarding the plane, Tiffany's transformation from sweet to cruel. The confrontation, Catherine's arrival, the escalation, Rick grabbing her, the whole horrible progression. The video had 12 million views. 12 million people had watched her worst moment. The comments section was a war zone. This is what systemic racism looks like. It's not always burning crosses. Sometimes it's a flight attendant who assumes a black girl can't afford first class. She's acting entitled because her daddy has money. This has nothing to do with race and everything to do with her being a spoiled brat. Notice how she immediately played the victim and called her rich father? She knew exactly what she was doing. Y'all really blaming a 19-year-old for getting assaulted on an airplane? The mental gymnastics are Olympic level. Maya closed the comments and went to Twitter, where things were somehow worse. The hashtag Boycott Horizon Air was still trending, but so was a new one, Privileged Princess. She clicked on it and immediately regretted it. Maya Johnson crying about her first-class seat while people are homeless. Rich people problems aren't real problems. Her father literally threatened to bankrupt an entire airline, putting thousands of jobs at risk because his daughter couldn't handle being told no. That's the definition of privilege. She could have just moved to another seat. Instead, she caused an international incident. This generation is so dramatic. Each tweet was a small knife, and there were thousands of them. A knock on her bedroom door made her jump. Priya poked her head in. You're still awake. I heard you pacing. Want some tea? They sat in the small kitchen, mugs of chamomile warming their hands, and Priya said, You know you're allowed to stop reading what people say about you, right? You're allowed to just ignore all of it. I can't. I need to know what they're thinking, what they're saying. No, you think you need to know. But Maya, these people don't know you. Their opinions are based on a 15-minute video and their own biases. Why does that matter? Because it's everywhere. Because when people search my name, this is what they'll find. Because I'm going to apply for internships and law schools and jobs, and this will follow me forever. Priya set down her mug and took Maya's hands. Then make it follow you as something positive. You stood up for yourself. You didn't back down when powerful people tried to intimidate you. That's not a weakness, Maya. That's a strength. Tell that to the people calling me a privileged princess. Those people were going to hate you no matter what you did. If you'd moved, they would have called you weak. If you'd fought back differently, they would have called you aggressive. You can't win with people who've already decided you're the villain. Maya knew Priya was right, but it didn't make the comments hurt less. Her phone buzzed. A text from Harrison. Catherine Vanderbilt's defamation lawsuit was thrown out. Judge called it frivolous and sanctioned her attorney for wasting the court's time. She now owes you $50,000 in legal fees. Maya showed the text to Priya, who let out a whoop. See? Justice. Sweet, sweet justice. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. Maya's stomach clenched, expecting another threat. But this one was different. Hi, Maya. My name is Jennifer Torres. I was on your flight, sitting in seat 5C. I watched everything that happened, and I didn't say anything to help you. I'm sorry. I'm a coward. But I want you to know I gave a statement to your lawyer detailing everything I saw. I hope it helps. You deserved better from all of us. Maya felt tears burning her eyes. She showed Priya the text. That's huge, Priya said. That's someone taking accountability. Maya typed back, thank you for the statement, and you're not a coward. Speaking up is hard. I appreciate your honesty. Over the next hour, 3 more texts came through, all from passengers on Flight 882, all apologizing for not intervening, all offering to testify if needed. Mr. Henderson, the businessman from seat 2A, sent a particularly detailed message. Miss Johnson, I told you to just move. I was wrong. I prioritized my own comfort over your rights. I've given a full statement to the authorities, and I'll testify in any legal proceedings. I'm also writing to the Oxford Dean of Students to commend your character. What those employees did was unconscionable. What I did, staying silent, was almost as bad. I'm sorry. Maya read the message 3 times, feeling something shift in her chest. These people, strangers who'd watched her humiliation, were choosing to stand with her now. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. By morning, Maya had made a decision. She called her father. I'll do the interview. Good morning, America, or whoever, but on my terms. I want to talk about the systemic issues, not just my story. I want to talk about the other passengers who've experienced this. And I want to announce that I'm using any money from the lawsuit to create a legal fund for people who've been discriminated against in travel but can't afford to fight back. Robert was quiet for a moment. That's very mature of you, and very much like your mother. Is that a yes? That's a hell yes. I'll have Harrison coordinate with GMA. They'll send a crew to Oxford tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's so soon. Strike while the iron is hot, baby girl. Right now you have the world's attention. Use it. After hanging up, Maya spent the day preparing. She wrote notes about what she wanted to say, practiced answers to questions she anticipated. Priya helped her pick out an outfit, something professional but approachable. You need to look like yourself, Priya said, holding up a blue blazer. Not like you're trying to be someone you're not. Authentic Maya, the girl who volunteers at legal clinics and stays up until 3 helping me with my economics homework. Marcus arrived that evening to discuss security for the interview. The shoot will be at the University Library, neutral territory. We'll have 3 security personnel positioned around the perimeter. No one gets close to you except the interviewer and the camera crew, all of whom will be vetted. This feels like overkill, Maya said. You've received 47 credible threats in the last 36 hours, Marcus said bluntly. This is not overkill. This is barely adequate. Maya's blood ran cold. 47? Your father didn't want you to know the full number. But yes, most are just keyboard warriors who won't do anything. But it only takes one who will. So we're being careful. That night, Maya couldn't eat. Her stomach was in knots thinking about the interview, about what she'd say, about how the world would respond. Priya ordered pizza anyway and forced her to eat at least 2 slices. You need energy. Tomorrow you're going to tell 12 million people that you refuse to be invisible. That requires calories. At 10 o'clock, Harrison called with news. The class action lawsuit now has 43 plaintiffs, 43 people who've been discriminated against on Horizon Air flights in the past 3 years. We have documentation for all of it. This is going to be the biggest airline discrimination case since the 1990s. That many people? Maya felt sick. This has been happening to that many people and nobody did anything? They did what most people do when institutions hurt them. They complained quietly, got ignored, and moved on with their lives. You're the first person who had the resources and the platform to fight back effectively. That's why this matters, Maya. You're not just fighting for yourself. After the call ended, Maya sat at her desk and opened her laptop one more time. She went back to YouTube, back to the video, but this time she didn't read the comments. Instead, she watched herself. Really watched. She saw a scared 19-year-old trying to remain calm in the face of injustice. She saw someone who could have screamed, could have made a scene, but instead tried to reason with people who refused to listen. She saw someone who only called for help when she was being physically assaulted. And for the first time, she felt proud of that girl in the hoodie. The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, typical English weather. The Good Morning America crew arrived at 9, professional and efficient. The interviewer was Robin Roberts, which Maya took as a good sign. Robin had a reputation for tough but fair interviews. They set up in one of Oxford's oldest libraries, surrounded by centuries-old books and Gothic architecture. Maya sat in a leather chair across from Robin, her hands folded in her lap to hide their shaking. "We're live in 30 seconds, a producer called out. Marcus stood just off camera, his presence reassuring. Robin leaned forward and spoke quietly, just for Maya. "I've watched the video a dozen times. What happened to you was wrong. Just tell the truth and you'll be fine." Then the cameras were on, and Robin's professional smile was in place. We're here at Oxford University with Maya Johnson, the 19-year-old at the center of what many are calling the airline discrimination incident that sparked international outrage. Maya, thank you for talking with us. "Thank you for having me," Maya said, and was relieved. Her voice came out steady. "Let's start with what happened. In your own words, take us through that day." Maya took a breath and began. She described arriving at the airport, the gate agent's dismissal, boarding the plane, Tiffany's transformation, Catherine's demands. She didn't dramatize, she didn't embellish, she just told the truth. When she got to the part about Rick grabbing her arm, her voice wavered slightly. "I cried out because it hurt. He was a large man and I'm small. And I was scared. I've never been physically removed from anywhere. I kept thinking, what if they actually arrest me? What if I end up in jail because I wouldn't give up a seat I paid for?" "Your father's response was dramatic," Robin said carefully, landing his private jet, blocking the commercial aircraft, cutting fuel supplies. Some people have criticized that as an overreaction. What do you say to that? Maya had prepared for this question. "My father is protective, and I understand why people might see his response as extreme. But here's what I'd ask those people. What would you do if someone assaulted your child? If someone put bruises on your daughter's arm and humiliated her in front of 50 people? Would you just accept an apology and move on? Or would you demand accountability? But threatening an entire airline, potentially costing thousands of jobs, he didn't threaten the airline. He gave them a choice. Change your discriminatory practices or lose a fuel supplier. They chose to change. That's not a threat. That's consequences for bad behavior." Robin nodded, clearly impressed with the answer. "You've announced you're creating a legal fund for people who've experienced discrimination in travel. Tell us about that." "The only reason I could fight back is because my father has resources. Money for lawyers, money for security, the ability to make phone calls that get answered. But most people who experience what I experienced don't have those resources. They get humiliated, they get hurt, and they have no recourse. This fund will provide legal representation for anyone who's been discriminated against in airports, on planes, in travel spaces. Because everyone deserves to travel with dignity, not just people who can afford expensive lawyers." That's a powerful mission. How much are you funding it with? "Any money I receive from the lawsuit against Horizon Air will go directly into the fund. My attorney estimates that could be anywhere from $5 to $20 million. Robin's eyebrows rose. "That's significant. And you're giving it all away?" "I don't want profit from my pain. I want change. If my experience can help other people fight back, then maybe it was worth it." You've received death threats, harassment, been called privileged and entitled on social media. How do you respond to people who say you're making this about race when it's really about you being a spoiled rich kid who couldn't handle being told no? Maya felt anger flash through her, but kept her voice level. I'd ask those people a simple question. Would Tiffany Miller have treated me that way if I were white? If I'd walked onto that plane in a hoodie and sneakers, but I had blonde hair and blue eyes, would she have assumed I didn't belong in first class? Would she have demanded to see my ticket multiple times? Would she have called security to physically remove me? I don't think so. And the fact that people want to ignore the racial component of this tells me exactly why this conversation is necessary. Robin leaned back, a small smile on her face. You're 19 years old, and you're remarkably articulate about systemic racism. Where does that come from? My mother. She was a cardiac surgeon, one of the first black women to run a cardiac unit at a major hospital. She dealt with people assuming she was a nurse, or a cafeteria worker, or anyone except the doctor in charge. She taught me that these assumptions aren't accidents. They're the result of deeply ingrained biases. And she taught me that staying silent in the face of injustice is the same as endorsing it. Your mother passed away 3 years ago, is that right? Maya nodded, feeling emotion rising in her throat. What would she think of how you've handled this? Maya smiled through sudden tears. She'd probably say I should have made more noise. My mom didn't believe in quiet dignity. She believed in loud, unapologetic resistance. So honestly, she'd probably think I'm being too soft. Robin laughed. I would have liked to meet your mother. Last question, Maya. What do you want people to take away from your story? Maya looked directly at the camera, thinking of all the people watching, all the people who'd sent her hate, all the people who'd sent her support, all the people fighting their own battles against discrimination. I want people to understand that discrimination isn't always dramatic. It's not always burning crosses and slurs shouted in the street. Sometimes it's a flight attendant who looks at you and decides you don't belong. Sometimes it's a gate agent who assumes your ticket must be fake. Sometimes it's 1,000 small moments where people make you feel like you're taking up space you haven't earned. And I want people to know that you don't have to accept it. You don't have to make yourself smaller to make other people comfortable. You have a right to exist in every space you've paid to be in, and you have a right to dignity. The interview wrapped and the crew began packing up their equipment. Robin approached Maya privately. That was one of the best interviews I've done in years. You're going to change a lot of minds today. Or make a lot of people angrier, Maya said. Probably both. But that's how change happens. It's messy and uncomfortable, and it makes people angry. But you keep pushing anyway. Marcus escorted Maya back to her apartment, where Priya was waiting with breakfast and an iPad showing the live reaction on social media. It's blowing up, Priya said. In a good way. People are praising you, sharing clips, talking about their own experiences. Maya took the iPad and scrolled through Twitter. The responses were overwhelming. She handled that perfectly, calm, articulate, made every point without being aggressive. The way she honored her mother made me cry. This girl is special. I've been a flight attendant for 20 years, and I'm ashamed of what Tiffany did. Maya is right. This is about bias, and it needs to change. But there were still the other comments, the ones calling her a liar, a race baiter, an attention seeker. Maya had learned to expect those. Her phone rang. Her father. You were perfect. Absolutely perfect. Your mother would be so proud. Thanks, Dad. It was terrifying. The best things usually are. Listen, I have news. Horizon Air just announced they're settling the class action lawsuit. 43 plaintiffs, $175 million total, plus mandatory anti-discrimination training for all employees, and an independent oversight committee. Maya sat down hard. 175 million? Your portion, based on the severity of your case, will be approximately 28 million, which you're donating to the legal fund as promised. 28 million, Maya whispered. That's going to help so many people. It already is. Harrison says he's received 300 applications for the fund in the last 2 hours. People who've been waiting years for someone to help them fight back. After hanging up, Maya looked at Priya, who was grinning ear to ear. "You just changed the world, Maya Johnson." "I just told the truth." "Same thing," Priya said. That night, Maya finally slept. Not peacefully, she still had nightmares about hands grabbing her, voices calling her names. But she slept, knowing she'd done something that mattered. And tomorrow, she'd wake up and keep fighting, because that's what her mother would have done. 3 months passed in a blur of legal proceedings, media attention, and Maya trying desperately to return to some semblance of normal life. But normal, she was learning, was a luxury she no longer had. She was sitting in her Oxford Library carrel, attempting to focus on a constitutional law essay, when her phone buzzed with a text from Harrison. "Criminal trial starts Monday. Rick Santos and Tiffany Miller both pleading not guilty. You need to be there to testify." Maya's stomach dropped. She'd been dreading this moment, knowing it was coming, but hoping somehow it wouldn't. The thought of facing them again, of reliving that day in front of a courtroom full of strangers, made her feel physically ill. She called her father immediately. "I can't do it," she said without preamble. "I can't sit in a courtroom and face them. I can't do it, Dad." "Yes, you can," Robert said gently, "and you will. Because if you don't, they walk away with a slap on the wrist and do this to someone else. They've already lost their jobs. Their reputations are destroyed. Isn't that enough?" "No, because jobs can be replaced and reputations can be rebuilt. But a criminal conviction, that's permanent. That sends a message that you can't assault passengers and get away with it." Maya knew he was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. "Will you be there?" she asked quietly. "I'll be in the front row. Marcus will be there. Harrison will be there. You won't be alone, baby girl. I promise." The flight back to New York that weekend felt surreal. Maya was flying commercial again, first class, on Delta this time. The flight attendants recognized her immediately, their eyes widening when she boarded. But instead of judgment or hostility, she received something entirely different. Miss Johnson, the head flight attendant, an older black woman named Gloria, said quietly as Maya settled into her seat, "I just want to say thank you. What you did, standing up like that, it's made things better for all of us. Management actually listens now when we report discrimination. We have new protocols, so thank you." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I didn't do it to be a hero. I just wanted my seat." "The best heroes never set out to be heroes," Gloria said with a smile. "They just refused to accept injustice. That's exactly what you did." The flight was smooth, uneventful, and when Maya deplaned at JFK, her father was waiting at the gate with open arms. "Ready for this?" he asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They drove to the courthouse early Monday morning, and Maya was shocked by the crowd. News vans lined the street, reporters jostling for position behind police barricades. A group of protesters held signs reading, "Justice for Maya," and "Airlines aren't above the law." But there was also a smaller counter-protest group with signs that made Maya's blood run cold. "Spoiled rich girl ruins lives," and "Tiffany Miller is the real victim." Marcus hustled Maya through a side entrance, avoiding the crowds, but she'd seen enough. Inside the courtroom, Maya sat in the witness waiting room, her hands clenched together to stop their shaking. Harrison sat beside her, reviewing her testimony. "Just tell the truth," he said for the 100th time. "Don't embellish, don't minimize. Just describe what happened in your own words." "What if I freeze? What if I start crying?" "Then you freeze and cry. The jury needs to see the real impact of what they did. You're not performing, Maya. You're testifying." When her name was called, Maya stood on legs that felt like water. Her father squeezed her hand as she passed. "You've got this," he whispered. The courtroom was packed. Maya saw journalists with notepads, sketch artists, and a sea of unfamiliar faces. And there, at the defense table, sat Tiffany Miller and Rick Santos, both in conservative suits, both looking significantly less confident than they had on that airplane. Tiffany's eyes met Maya's for just a second, and Maya saw something there. Fear. Regret, maybe. Or maybe just fear of consequences. Rick wouldn't look at her at all. Maya was sworn in and took her seat in the witness box. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Walsh, approached with a kind smile. Miss Johnson, can you tell the jury what happened on July 15th of this year when you attempted to board Horizon Air Flight 882? Maya took a breath and began. She described every moment, every word, every feeling. When she got to the part about Rick grabbing her arm, her voice broke. "He grabbed me here," she said, touching her upper arm. "Hard enough that I could feel his fingers digging into the bone. I cried out because it hurt and because I was scared. I'd never been manhandled like that. I didn't know what was happening or why it was happening to me." "Did you resist?" Walsh asked. "No, I was too shocked, too scared. I just let him pull me out of my seat because I thought if I fought back, it would get worse." "What happened to your phone?" Maya's jaw tightened. "I'd been on a call with my father trying to get help. When Rick grabbed me, I dropped it. The flight attendant, Ms. Miller, she kicked it under the seat. When I asked for it back, she said they'd mail it to me." She smiled when she said it. Tiffany's lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. The witness is characterizing my client's emotional state." "I'll allow it," the judge said. "The witness can describe what she observed. Continue, Miss Johnson." Maya looked directly at Tiffany. She smiled, like she was enjoying humiliating me, like she'd won something. The questioning continued for another 30 minutes. Walsh walked Maya through every detail, entered the videos into evidence, showed the photographs of Maya's bruised arm taken by Dr. Chen on the Gulf Stream. Then came cross-examination. Tiffany's lawyer, a slick man named Bradley Morrison, approached with a condescending smile that made Maya's skin crawl. "Miss Johnson, you're very wealthy, aren't you?" "My father is wealthy. I'm a college student. But you benefit from that wealth, don't you? You attend Oxford University, one of the most expensive schools in the world. You fly first class regularly. You have private security." "I have private security now because of this incident. And yes, I'm privileged financially. That doesn't mean I deserve to be assaulted." "Assaulted is a strong word, don't you think? My client simply escorted you off the aircraft per the flight attendant's instructions. Your client grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises and dragged me down the aisle while I was crying. If that's not assault, what is?" Morrison's smile faltered slightly. "You called your father immediately when things didn't go your way, didn't you?" "I called my father when a flight attendant stole my phone and had me physically removed from a seat I'd paid for. Yes. And your father responded by essentially holding an entire airport hostage, didn't he? Landing his private jet illegally, blocking aircraft, threatening to bankrupt an airline?" Harrison stood up. "Objection. Relevance. Mr. Johnson's actions are not on trial here." "Sustained," the judge said. "Move on, Mr. Morrison." Morrison tried several more angles, attempting to paint Maya as entitled, dramatic, someone who escalated the situation unnecessarily. But every answer Maya gave was calm, factual, and devastatingly credible. Finally, Morrison made a fatal mistake. "Isn't it true, Miss Johnson, that you could have avoided this entire incident by simply moving to another seat?" Maya leaned forward slightly. "Isn't it true, Mr. Morrison, that Mrs. Miller could have avoided this entire incident by not profiling me based on my appearance? By not assuming I didn't belong in first class because I was wearing a hoodie? By treating me like every other paying passenger instead of like a criminal?" The courtroom went silent. Even Morrison seemed at a loss for words. "No further questions," he muttered, returning to his seat. Rick's lawyer didn't even attempt to cross-examine. Maya was dismissed. As she walked past the defense table, Tiffany suddenly spoke, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Maya. I was wrong. I know I was wrong." Maya stopped, looked at her, saw tears streaming down Tiffany's face. For a moment, Maya felt something that might have been compassion. Tiffany had lost everything, her career, her reputation, and now, possibly her freedom. But then Maya remembered the smile, the casual cruelty, the way Tiffany had kicked her phone under the seat. "You're not sorry you did it," Maya said quietly. "You're sorry you got caught." She walked out of the courtroom without looking back. The trial continued for 3 more days. Other witnesses testified. The passengers who'd recorded videos. Mr. Henderson, who looked ashamed as he described watching the assault and doing nothing. The gate agent Patricia, who admitted she'd profiled Maya based on her clothing. Then came the shocking testimony. A former Horizon Air flight attendant named Michelle Rodriguez took the stand and revealed that Tiffany Miller had a documented history of discriminatory behavior. 3 separate complaints filed by passengers of color, all dismissed by management as misunderstandings. The company protected her, Michelle said, her voice shaking with anger. We all knew Tiffany had issues with black passengers, with Latino passengers, with anyone who didn't look like her ideal of first class. But she was good at her job otherwise, so they looked the other way. Why are you coming forward now? Walsh asked. Because I'm ashamed I didn't come forward sooner. Because Maya Johnson had the courage to fight back, and I should have had the courage to speak up. Better late than never. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. Walsh immediately moved to introduce evidence of prior bad acts, and the judge allowed it over vigorous objections from the defense. By the time closing arguments came, the case was no longer about whether Rick and Tiffany had committed assault. It was about whether a system that enabled and protected discrimination would finally face consequences. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Maya sat in a conference room with her father, Harrison, and Marcus, unable to eat, unable to focus on anything except the clock on the wall. What if they're acquitted, she asked. What if the jury decides I was overreacting? Then we appeal, Robert said firmly, and we keep fighting until we get justice. But Maya couldn't shake the fear that all of this, the testimony, the media attention, the exposure of her worst moment, would be for nothing. Finally, at 4:30 in the afternoon, the jury sent word they'd reached a verdict. The courtroom filled quickly. Maya sat in the front row, her father's hand gripping hers so tightly it almost hurt. The jury filed in, their faces unreadable. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. We have, Your Honor. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. On the charge of assault and battery against defendant Richard Santos, how do you find? Guilty, Your Honor. Maya felt her knees go weak even though she was sitting down. On the charge of theft and conspiracy to commit assault against defendant Tiffany Miller, how do you find? Guilty, Your Honor. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed out to file stories. Tiffany Miller collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Rick Santos sat frozen, his face gray. Maya just breathed, in and out. In and out. Justice. Finally, justice. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Rick Santos received 6 months in jail, 2 years probation, and 500 hours of community service. Tiffany Miller received 4 months in jail, 2 years probation, and was ordered to complete anti-bias training and speak at airline industry conferences about the consequences of discrimination. But the real victory came in the judge's statement. This case represents a turning point, Judge Patricia Morrison said, her voice carrying through the silent courtroom. For too long, we've treated discrimination in public accommodations as a minor inconvenience rather than the civil rights violation it is. Ms. Johnson's courage in standing up for herself has exposed systematic failures in how we train, supervise, and hold accountable those who serve the public. Let this verdict send a clear message. Discrimination will not be tolerated, and those who engage in it will face real consequences. Maya cried then, not tears of sadness, but of relief so profound it felt like something breaking open inside her chest. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. But this time, Maya was ready. She stood at the microphone with her father beside her, Marcus and Harrison flanking her, and she spoke with a voice that didn't shake. This verdict isn't just about me. It's about the 43 other plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit. It's about every person of color who's been told they don't belong in spaces they've paid to be in. It's about changing a system that's been broken for far too long. What's next for you, Maya? A reporter called out. I'm going back to Oxford to finish my degree. Then law school. I'm going to spend my career fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. Because everyone deserves dignity, everyone deserves justice, and everyone deserves to travel without fear of being profiled or assaulted. Do you forgive Tiffany Miller and Rick Santos? Maya paused, considering the question. I'm not sure forgiveness is mine to give. They didn't just hurt me. They hurt everyone who's ever been made to feel less than because of how they look. But I hope they learn from this. I hope they become better people. And I hope this never happens to anyone else. 6 months later, Maya returned to JFK Airport for the first time since the incident. She was flying to a conference where she'd been invited to speak about the legal fund she'd established, which had already helped 73 people pursue discrimination cases. She approached the gate with the old, familiar anxiety creeping up her spine. But this time was different. The gate agent, a young South Asian woman, looked up and smiled warmly. "Miss Johnson, welcome. Your seat is ready in first class, and I just want to say, thank you. My cousin was discriminated against on a flight last year, and your legal fund helped her fight back. You're changing lives." Maya felt tears prick her eyes, just trying to make things better. She boarded the plane, and the flight attendant greeting passengers stopped mid-sentence when she saw Maya. It was Gloria, the flight attendant from her Delta flight months ago. "Maya," Gloria said warmly, "I transferred to this route specifically hoping to serve you one day. Welcome aboard." Maya settled into seat 1A, the same seat that had started everything. But this time, there was no hostility, no judgment, just respect. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Maya looked out the window at the tarmac below. She thought about that day 6 months ago, about how terrified she'd been, about how small she'd felt. She wasn't small anymore. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Proud of you every single day. Your mother would be too. Go change the world, baby girl." Maya smiled, typed back a heart emoji, and opened her laptop. She had a speech to write, a legal brief to review, and a dozen emails from people asking for help with their own discrimination cases. The work was never ending. The fight was exhausting. But it was also necessary, meaningful, and exactly what she was meant to do. On the seat beside her, another passenger settled in. A young black girl, maybe 16, wearing a hoodie and clutching a backpack. The flight attendant approached and smiled at the girl. "Welcome aboard. Can I get you something to drink?" No judgment, no profiling, just service. The girl looked surprised, then relieved. "Water, please." "Of course, and if you need anything during the flight, just let me know." After the flight attendant left, the girl looked at Maya. Is it always like this now? People just being normal? Maya smiled. It's getting better. Not perfect, but better. And we keep fighting until normal is the baseline, not the exception. Are you Maya Johnson? The girl asked suddenly. From the video? Yeah, that's me. You're my hero. I was scared to fly alone because I thought, they'd treat me like I didn't belong. But then I saw what you did and I thought, if she can stand up to them, so can I. Maya felt her throat tighten with emotion. What's your name? Destiny. I'm flying to a science competition in California. Full scholarship. That's amazing, Destiny. And you know what? You belong on this plane. You belong in first class. You belong anywhere your dreams take you. Don't let anyone tell you different. Destiny grinned. I won't. Because of you, I won't. As the plane climbed into the sky, Maya looked out at the clouds and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. She'd been humiliated, assaulted, threatened, and dragged through the most traumatic experience of her life. But she'd survived. More than survived. She'd fought back, won, and changed an entire industry in the process. Her mother had taught her that staying silent in the face of injustice was the same as endorsing it. Maya hadn't stayed silent, and because she'd spoken up, girls like Destiny could travel without fear. People like the 73 plaintiffs her legal fund had helped could fight back against discrimination. Airlines across the country had implemented new training, new protocols, new accountability measures. None of it erased what had happened to her. The nightmares still came sometimes. The anxiety still spiked when she walked onto planes. The scars, both physical and emotional, were permanent. But so was the change she'd created. Tiffany Miller was teaching anti-bias seminars at airports across the country, part of her sentence, forced to confront the harm she'd caused. Rick Santos was volunteering at a youth center, working with at-risk teens, trying to make amends. Catherine Vanderbilt had lost her husband, her lifestyle, and her social standing, a cautionary tale about the cost of entitled cruelty. And Maya? Maya was exactly where she was supposed to be, fighting, learning, growing, changing the world one case at a time. Her father had asked if standing up for herself had been worth it. Looking at Destiny's hopeful face, at the flight attendant treating every passenger with equal dignity, at the stack of thank you letters from people her legal fund had helped, Maya knew the answer. It had been worth every terrifying, painful, exhausting moment. Because she hadn't just fought for her seat on that airplane. She'd fought for every person who'd ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. And she'd won. Some battles are chosen. Some choose you. Maya hadn't wanted to be a civil rights advocate at 19. She'd just wanted to fly to London in peace. But sometimes the moment picks you. And when it does, you have two choices: shrink or stand. Maya had stood. And she would keep standing for the rest of her life, making sure that no one else ever had to fight alone for the simple right to exist with dignity in the space they'd earned. That was her mother's legacy. That was her mission. That was justice. And it had only just begun.